Hello English learners, welcome to our English learning channel Learn English Easily Through Stories. I am your host Robert. Every morning the king held out 2 coins, 1 gold, 1 silver, and every morning the boy picked silver. The crowd laughed. The king laughed. Nobody asked why. Nobody opened the box. Before starting a story, subscribe our channel for more English learning stories. In a prosperous kingdom nestled between rolling hills and wide rivers, there lived a king who was known throughout the land for his fairness and sharp judgment. At his side stood his most trusted minister, a man of remarkable intelligence whose counsel had guided the kingdom through floods, famines, droughts, and disputes that would have broken lesser rulers. The minister had a gift that was almost supernatural. Where others saw chaos, he saw patterns. Where others saw dead ends, he saw pathways. No crisis was too complex, no conflict too tangled. The king had come to rely on him so completely that he rarely made any decision of consequence without first pulling the minister aside and asking, "What do you think?" This deep trust, of course, did not go unnoticed. The other members of the royal court watched with barely concealed resentment as the minister's star continued to rise. They whispered in corridors, traded glances across the banquet table, and gathered in small clusters after royal meetings to grumble quietly among themselves. Who was this man, they asked, to hold so much influence over the king? Surely his reputation was exaggerated. Surely he was not as brilliant as everyone believed. But try as they might, they could never find a flaw, until, one day, they thought they had found something even better. Not a flaw in the minister himself, but in his own household. It was on a quiet afternoon that the king summoned the minister to a private meeting. When the minister arrived, the king was seated by the window, watching the courtyard below with an expression that was difficult to read. "You are a man of great intelligence," the king began, his voice measured and calm. "There is no one in this kingdom I respect more for his wisdom." The minister bowed his head graciously. "Your Majesty is too kind." "And yet," the king continued, turning away from the window, "I have been observing something that troubles me. Your son, he is a good-natured young man, I have no doubt, but I must speak plainly. He strikes me as quite foolish." The minister straightened. A flicker of something, not quite anger, but something close to it, crossed his face. He was not accustomed to hearing criticism of his family, especially not from the king, and especially not without reason. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "I would ask you to help me understand. What has my son done to give you this impression?" The king leaned back and folded his hands together. "Every morning, as you know, I make a point of walking through the market to meet the people of this city. I believe a king who does not know his people is no king at all. And every morning, without fail, your son is there among the crowd." "Yes," the minister nodded. "He enjoys the mornings. For the past several weeks," the king continued, "I have made it a small habit to approach your son and present him with a simple question. I hold out 2 coins, 1 of silver, 1 of gold, and I ask him to take the more valuable one." The king paused. "Every single day, without hesitation, your son picks up the silver coin." A ripple of barely suppressed laughter moved through the small group of courtiers standing at the edges of the room. The minister felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his face composed. "Every day?" he asked quiet. The courtiers could no longer fully conceal their amusement. The minister stood in silence for a moment, nodded respectfully, and excused himself from the room. He walked home with a great deal on his mind. His son was sitting in the garden when he arrived, reading quietly in the afternoon shade. The minister stood before him and wasted no time. "Tell me," he said, "which is more valuable, gold or silver?" His son looked up from his book without any surprise on his face, as though he had been expecting this question. "Gold, of course," he replied simply. The minister studied him for a long moment. "Then tell me something. If you know that gold is more valuable, why do you tell the king that silver is better? Why do you pick up the silver coin every single morning when the king offers you both? The entire court is laughing. I was made to feel ashamed today in front of the king himself. The son set his book down carefully and looked at his father with calm, steady eyes. "Father," he said, "let me show you something." He led the minister inside the house and down a hallway to his private room. From beneath his bed he pulled a heavy wooden box, worn smooth at the edges from frequent handling. He placed it on the table and lifted the lid. The minister stared. The box was filled to the brim with silver coins, dozens upon dozens of them, gleaming softly in the afternoon light, stacked and sorted with quiet care. There were so many that the minister could not immediately count them. He reached in and ran his fingers through them, listening to the bright sound they made. "Where did all of these come from?" he asked, his voice lower now. "From the king," his son said. "One each morning. Every single day that I pick up the silver coin, the king laughs and walks away happy, and I walk home with the coin in my pocket." He folded his arms gently. "Now, father, think about what would happen if I picked up the gold coin instead." The minister was quiet. "The king would stop asking me the question," his son continued. "The game would be over. He finds joy in the moment, in watching me choose silver, in the laughter of the crowd, in feeling that he has caught the minister's son making a foolish mistake each morning. That moment is worth something to him. And as long as that moment continues, I receive a silver coin for it." He gestured toward the box. "Tell me, how many days would I have to wait to save enough from ordinary means to fill a box like that?" The minister looked at the box. He looked at his son. He was silent for a long time. "A single gold coin," his son said softly, "would have cost me all of these. I did not want to trade a steady stream of silver for one proud moment of being right." The minister walked back to the window and stood there thinking for what felt like a very long time. He had spent his whole career in the business of solving problems, of finding angles and approaches that others missed. He prided himself on seeing further than the crowd. And yet his own son, whom the king and the court had dismissed as a fool, had been running a quiet, patient, entirely elegant calculation under everyone's noses, and not one person had noticed. Not the king. Not the courtiers. Not even the minister himself. From that day forward, whenever someone at court made a remark about his son's foolishness, and they did, because the story had spread and become a kind of joke among them, the minister would simply smile. Not the polite, strained smile of someone hiding embarrassment. A real smile, warm and unhurried, the smile of a man who knows something that the room does not. And he would say nothing, and move on. There is a kind of wisdom that announces itself loudly and seeks the approval of everyone in the room. It wants to be seen being wise. It cannot resist correcting the wrong answer, even when the wrong answer is paying well. And then there is a quieter kind, the kind that is content to be misunderstood, that plays a long game without needing applause, that measures success not by what others think in the moment but by what is actually accumulating, slowly and surely, while no one is paying attention. The world has always been quick to call people foolish when it cannot immediately understand what they are doing. It laughs at those who pick the silver coin. It shakes its head at those who seem to be making the obvious mistake, day after day, without learning. But sometimes the person the world is laughing at is the one quietly filling a box. Do not be so quick to measure another person's choices by the single moment you happen to be watching. You may only be seeing the coin they picked up. You cannot see the box they are carrying home. Be patient. Be thoughtful. And keep moving forward, even if, for now, the room is laughing.